Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of our weekly Rotoworld Fantasy Basketball Q&A. I'm Raphielle Johnson, once again joined by Noah Rubin, also of Rotoworld, and pretty crazy night in the NBA last night. Two really good finishes to end things. Dyson Daniels was up to his usual. I saw some Kings fans upset. They thought there was a foul on that last play. Wasn't called. The Hawks got out of there with a 1-point victory. Then the Warriors' foul shooting woes caught up to them. 3-point loss to the Clippers. Clippers have beaten them twice this year. I think 2 of their 3 losses to the Clippers, the other one to the Cavs. But yeah, 8 games last night, got another 6 tonight, including Cleveland at Boston. Noah, what are your kind of thoughts from the weekend or even last night in terms of fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, mostly last night, it's Dyson Daniels' Defensive Player of the Year campaign is in full effect. He probably won't win it, so this isn't betting advice saying to go take those odds, whatever they are, because it doesn't hardly ever go to a guard, and I think he'd have to maintain this incredible steal rate for him to even have a chance, and that's just not likely. He can still be excellent in fantasy, and I think that'll continue. That's not going to stop anytime soon. So that was a lot of fun, even if Kings fans may have had a little bit of a point.
Yeah.
I'm okay with I'm okay with taking a win, but yeah, it's an interesting week. Not any heavy game days. I think the most is there's a few with 8, and then the least is one with 4. But I think for the most part, it's pretty well balanced, and not any advantages to have there, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty even week. Like, you should be able to find value throughout the week instead of having to focus on like 1 or 2 days. Thursday we'll have that to a certain extent, but it won't be anything too crazy like we saw last week with that standalone Jazz Mavericks game on Thursday. So looking forward to it, to the rest of this week. Now let's get into some questions. Looks like Ernest is already on the board. Dropped Chris Dunn earlier today for Vince Williams Jr. as I got higher hopes for that for Vince's upside versus Chris's. What are your thoughts? 12-team head-to-head 9-cat redraft league.
I'm a huge fan of Vince Williams, and I think as he kind of plays more games and his minutes go up, I think he eventually returns to being part of the starting lineup. I know Memphis's rotations have been pretty interesting this year, mostly just because of the amount of injuries they've had. But I think if he's getting 25, 28 minutes as a starter, like, that's a lot more valuable than Chris Dunn, who had a couple really good games and has been part of the starting lineup. But like last night, played 19 minutes as a starter. 2 games before that, played 19 minutes as a starter. So the minutes haven't been consistent. Obviously, Chris Dunn is a productive fantasy player when he gets the minutes, and can get you some steals and assists, and without needing to play, 35 minutes a game. So he still has value, but I'm much more interested in Vince Williams' upside.
Yeah, I think so. I'd agree with that. I thought he had a higher upside than Gigi Jackson. During the preseason, a lot of people were talking about Gigi, what he did last year as a scorer. I think Vince brings a lot more to the table across the board. So it'll be interesting to see what Memphis does with that lineup. We don't really know exactly when Ja Morant will be back, but the man's on crutches with a hip injury, so it looks like it may be an extended absence for him. If so, Vince's playmaking ability and his defense should certainly get him on the floor more. So, Another question from Ernest. It also seems like Alexander Sarr's value is really low at the moment. Thinking of offering Gafford, given that kid is keeping him at hard 18 minutes. Would you do that trade or hold Gafford?
I think I would rather have Sarr. I think a factor there is your team build. So if you really need Gafford's and in limited minutes, he's still very capable of getting you some rebounds and blocks and helping your field goal percentage, which I think is the main difference there, is that he's going to help even if it's on low volume, but he's not going to hurt you. And Alex Sarr is going to hurt you in that category. Like, he shot sub 40% this year. And they'd rather him shoot the ball and help him develop. So that's not going to stop. He's 35% from the floor in the year. Like, that's bad. But he's been very consistent with the blocks. I don't think you lose, I guess, too much from the rebounding there. And then he can get you a little bit of other things as well. But I think the main factor there is, can you deal with a 35% shooter shooting 10 times a game?
Yeah, that's a fair point. In terms of Gafford, I think a lot of us thought it would be like an even split between he and Lively. It hasn't always been that way. Dwight Powell's been getting rotation minutes occasionally. Same with Maxi Kleber at the 5. So instead of having 2 mouths to feed, so to speak, they technically have 4, which kind of limits the ceiling for Gafford and maybe even Lively as well. So, yeah, I think I would rather have Sarr. Like Noah said, if you can afford to take the hit in field goal percentage, you go ahead and do that. Or if you're just punting, field goal percentage in general. So, yeah, I think I'd rather have Sarr as well in that spot. Is Peyton Watson worth holding, or is it better to open the spot for streaming category league? I kind of feel like the recent Jokic absence kind of thrown a wrench into things just because of his playmaking ability and how he can find guys in that dunker spot, whether it's Watson or Aaron Gordon when he's healthy. Man, I don't know. I've seen good things from Watson, but it kind of depends on how many teams are in your league, whether or not you drop him for a streamer. I would probably, oh man, I prefer to hold on to him, but I think it's really close personally.
Yeah, I think it would depend on who you'd be picking him up to stream. I don't think he's definitely don't drop it. Like, it's not that good from what he's given us so far. And Jokic's absence has impacted that a little bit, I think. And Jokic, if I'm not mistaken, has already been ruled out for tonight. Yeah. So, it might be another game of fairly limited numbers, but still been able to give you about a steal and a block, 5 rebounds, a 3. I think their last game he only had 7 points, so before that he'd been scoring double figures. So he hasn't really popped the way that I think a lot of us were hoping he would with Aaron Gordon out, but the minutes will be there pretty consistently, and hopefully this is Jokic's last absence, and maybe that'll help him get, I guess, some better numbers moving forward. They do play on both Friday and Saturday this week, so there's still 2 more games, even if they have 2 days off after the game tonight. So I think it would, to me, just depend on who you'd be dropping him for.
Yeah, in terms of that Friday game, it's at home, so it kind of makes some sense that he would be back if it's due to personal reasons that he's been out. So I think maybe you can get a boost with having Watson on your roster if Jokic comes back for that game against Dallas. Should I drop Yusuf Nurkic for Goga Bitadze? I never thought we'd have a question like this, but it's actually a good question now. Nurkic has been injured and he's been up and down in terms of his production. We've seen, even when Nurkic was available, we've seen him lose minutes to Mason Plumlee. Now you have Oso Ighodaro, played well last night against Orlando. So the thing with Bitadze is that when Wendell Carter Jr. is healthy, he pretty much drops out of the rotation completely. So I think that's the risk you're running with. You're running into here.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do this, I don't hate it, but it's probably the understanding that you're probably not going to get Nurk back because somebody else is probably going to pick him up, and that you're going to get limited production out of Goga because, Wendell Carter Jr. isn't like about to be back, but I think he was doubtful ahead of their last game, so probably at least a couple more games maybe before he's back. But short term, I think it is a good move, but I think you start talking about 2 weeks down the road and it may be a little bit riskier. And so in the long run, maybe like, I don't know if that little bit of production was worth it. And I guess this is, another reason to do it in the short term. The Suns play on Wednesday and then don't play again until the following Tuesday. So you're not losing anything for the rest of this week after that.
Yeah, the schedule is one point taken into consideration. Also, who are your other centers on your roster? That's going to determine how big of a risk you can take. I don't think this is a huge risk, but it's something else to consider when weighing whether or not to make the move for Goga Bitadze. 14-team head-to-head. Somebody dropped Malik Monk. He gave up 2 field goal attempts per game in comparison to last season.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Monk, he's basically a deep league, a late round guy, even when healthy, just because he'll get his high 20s, even low 30s in terms of minutes sometimes, but I don't really see too much upside there. Like if you were a starter, maybe, but even with that, you still have De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis taking up a lot of those offensive touches. And at least one of those guys is going to be on the floor at all times. So, yeah, I think that would be something to consider, but it's not like a groundbreaking fantasy move, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's fine. We've had questions about whether or not to hold on to Malik Monk at this point. And I think it was kind of like, like you could. I mean,
yeah,
you don't like have to. So yeah, I don't think that's like a horrible thing that happened. I don't think you should be rushing to pick him up just because he's on the waiver wire. It might be back for their next game because they don't play again until Friday. Yep. So.
All right. Would you drop Scoot Henderson, Keontae George, or Alex Sarr to bring Scotty Barnes off of IR? 12-team 8-cap. I'll let you handle this one first.
Oh, okay. I think I'd actually lean Keontae George as far as who to drop. We already talked about Sarr a little bit. I guess the main thing there is the field goal percentage, and that's something that, Keontae George and Scoot Henderson also struggle with. Scoot has been starting with Simons out. So I think that's another thing is like, we don't know when Simons will be back. I think it was an illness, so hopefully it's not that much longer, but it's already been a few games.
Yeah.
And even when he's coming off the bench, like pretty good source of assists there. But Keontae George, when his shot's falling, he's great. And when it's not, he's not giving you a ton, like similar assists to Scoot. But I don't know. I think I would actually drop Keontae George before I drop Scoot or Alex Sarr.
Yeah, I definitely hold Sarr. George, recently he struggled. I don't know what happened in the Clipper game, but he didn't start the second half. They had Isaiah Collier out there. And with George's efficiency issues, I'm starting to wonder if we're going to see a little bit more of Collier at the point just to see what he can bring to the table, because between the turnovers and a field goal percentage, they're leaving a lot on the table with Keontae right now. So he really needs to clean that up. I think of those three, I'd probably drop George as well. Even Scoot as a reserve, I think he's improved a little bit in terms of the efficiency. So I would probably drop George out of those three.
Yeah, Scoot Henderson has the highest field goal percentage out of those three, which is kind of crazy to say, is that he would be hurting your field goal percentage the least amount.
Yeah. All right, drop one. Yves Missi, Clint Capella, Santi Aldama, Onyeka Okongwu, or Isaiah Hartenstein, 12-team 9-cat. You got two Hawks in there, so you go ahead and do the honors first here.
We'll do process of elimination here and start off by saying I'm not dropping Okongwu or Hartenstein.
Yeah.
I feel like I wouldn't drop Yves Missi. He's been a little bit quieter recently, but I just don't really want to do that. Let me just pull up Santi Aldama's numbers here, because he's been very good this season, but the minutes have dropped off a little bit recently. But Capella is Capella. And I don't think I might drop Santi Aldama. It's between him or Capella to me. And Capella has been kind of iffy. Kind of depends on who's available, who's not. But I feel like with Memphis getting healthier, I think Santi Aldama is the one I would drop.
Yeah, I can see that. I'd probably drop Clint, actually, because I don't.
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like we've seen what we're going to get out of him at this point. In terms of Aldama, I think he's played well enough overall to remain a decent part of that rotation moving forward. Like, even if it's just 25 minutes per game, I think there are times where he could potentially pop offensively. Okongwu, yeah, he just needs Clint. They need to get Clint, either limit his minutes, or we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. That's when he can really explode. Misi's upside, I think, is too high. And then Hartenstein, they're going to need him once he gets healthy enough to play, just because of the Chet Holmgren injury. So, yeah, I think Clint would be the one I would drop out of those five.
And I guess another factor to consider there is that that's 4 pretty traditional centers and Santi Aldama. So maybe just for the sake of not having a bunch of the same player, switching up, keeping Aldama there, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Michael asks, traded Zach LaVine for Lauri Markkanen, 10-team 9-cat. What are your opinions on Lauri Markkanen's slow start and potential play time if the Jazz shut down early?
In my opinion, any playing time / shutdown concerns that are there for Lauri Markkanen are probably also there for Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
I mean, he could get traded, which I think would be better for him if he's playing on a better team than Chicago and has a chance to make the playoffs. Yeah, Markkanen, he hasn't been great so far. I think his shooting percentage has been way down, but it's still early. I think he's played like 10 games exactly and had like 4 bad shooting nights, and then the other 6 he was fine. So it makes his percentages a little lower. I'm not too worried. I think the bigger concern is the shutdown potential. But that's not something you would have to worry about until February, mid-February, late February, which is, potentially the same time you could be dealing with that for Zach LaVine if he doesn't get traded.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty good about Markkanen just because that team's pretty bad, and I don't think they're going to need to pull the plug extremely early, like we've seen the last 2 years, where they exceeded expectations. Then Danny Ainge basically pulled the plug at the trade deadline. I think this is going to be a different situation here. What would concern me is the recent back issue that sidelined him for a couple games. That would be my concern. But yeah, I think he's going to play. The thing with LaVine, I don't see Chicago going like full on shutdown just because they haven't done it in the past. Like they seem happy going with like 36 to 38 wins and possibly being 10th in the East, for better or for worse for that fan base. So I'm sure they'd like to see some of the younger guys get out there and show what they can do. So yeah, I think I'm okay with Markkanen. I think he'll bounce back. He's too good of a player to continue to struggle as he has.
Yeah, I think this was a good buy low on Markkanen and sell high on LaVine move.
Yep. All right. Will Joker's time off be a nice respite considering his insane workload to start the season?
I don't know if this was confirmed, but what I saw, I think it was somebody had tweeted that it was from like a Serbian news outlet that he was having a child.
Okay.
And so I just, if that's the case, I can't imagine that he's getting a ton of rest. So I don't know if he's going to be, refreshed. I mean, obviously it's not the same punishment on his body as NBA practices and games, but it's probably not getting a ton of sleep or anything like that. So it wasn't something that I was going to be super concerned about regardless, like whether he was playing or not. Like, I mean, he's playing big minutes and he's putting up big numbers. Maybe it helps refresh him or something. I mean, I don't think that's anything that we can really predict.
Yeah. Without knowing the specifics of why he's away from the team, can't really guess because who knows? He could be in a high stress situation or that's, so yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. It could be, but maybe not. We'll see what happens whenever he returns. Like I said earlier, that Friday home game against Dallas, maybe that's when they try to bring him back. Easier to bring a guy back when you're at home as opposed to in the midst of a road trip. Okay. 14-team head-to-head. Malik Monk is back soon. What is his role with DeMar getting all the usage there?
I mean, it's probably pretty similar to what it's been for most of the season, like 25 minutes per game off the bench, getting you some points, a couple assists, maybe a steal and a 3 or 2. Nothing too major.
Yeah, I don't think anything changes with his role. It's not like he's going to take a backseat to Keon Ellis based off of one game, So, yeah, I don't expect anything to change with Malik's role once he gets back. Would you drop any of Chris Dunn, Patrick Williams, Brandon Boston Jr., or Kevin Huerter in order to grab the Time Lord head-to-head 9-cat?
I think I'd drop any of those guys to get Rob Williams. I think prioritizing, probably dropping Chris Dunn. Then, I mean, some of those Pelicans guys are going to be back fairly soon, which probably bumps Brandon Boston back to the bench. And even if he still sees playing time because he's been legitimately good, it's not the same volume, so not the same production there. I think the guy that would probably feel worse about dropping is Kevin Huerter, but I don't feel bad about dropping him. I think I'm fine dropping any of those guys for Rob Williams.
Yeah, I think your only concern would be the schedule, potential back-to-backs for Portland. They've got one this weekend coming up, actually. Friday and Saturday, 2 games in Houston. So if you're looking at doing it right now, you're probably going to be, let's see, because they play their first game tonight in Oklahoma City. So probably looking at 2-game week for Robert Williams if you were to make that move tonight. So it kind of depends on what you need, but in terms of your other centers, if you have enough to compensate, if he sits out one of those games, which you kind of expect at this point. But yeah, any of those guys I would drop. I think Dunn would be the first one on the chopping block for me. And then, as you mentioned with the Pelicans, they got guys coming back pretty soon here. So Boston's going to fall off the radar pretty soon, I think. So either one of those two would be the guys I wouldn't hesitate to drop in order to pick up Robert Williams. Your guys' expectations for Ausar Thompson's limitation/ramp up? Will he play back-to-backs?
I would think so. I think based on what the issue was, it wasn't like a lower body injury. It was like a medical issue. So I think as long as his conditioning is fine, there maybe that's something where like they just see how his body responds. But I mean, they're ramping him up. I imagine that the issue probably would be more that his first game back or so, he probably plays like 15 minutes per game, maybe like slowly eases up to 20 or 25. That's probably more the concern than back-to-backs, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking ahead to week 6, if you're to be back then, that's a 4-game week for the Pistons, ending with a Friday, Saturday back-to-back at Indiana, then home against Philadelphia. So, I think he brings a lot to this, out of the same things to the table that his twin brother does. You're not going to get too much shooting, but a lot of those defensive stats are where he can be huge for category league managers once he's allowed to take on a full workload. I just wonder, where's he going to fit in that rotation? I think it's likely to probably come off the bench because that starting unit's going to need shooting. That's why Tim Hardaway Jr. is there. Unless they get to a point where they feel confident enough in Cade, Ivy, and Tobias Harris to provide that shooting, then you add a defensive stopper, essentially an Ausar. That would be what really takes his fantasy value up a notch. So I'm looking forward to him getting back on the court for health reasons first and foremost, but also fantasy. All right. Daniel also asked, RIP Klay, head-to-head 10-team 9-cat. I don't know about RIP Klay. I do know that I'd like to see Luka utilize him a bit more within that offense, get him some more opportunities to get going early in games because Luka's going to get his. Kyrie as well. I think the more they can do for Klay in that first quarter, that first rotation on the floor, will be really helpful for his fantasy value.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that he's like totally cooked at this point, but the numbers have been, I can't even say like unsurprising because I think everybody kind of knew like over the course of last season, like this isn't the Klay Thompson of old, and that's totally fine. Players age, that happens. But I expect him to continue to figure out how to play with the team, the team to continue to figure out how to use him. The last 2 games have been pretty bad, but I think, it is a 10-team league, so I wouldn't say definitely don't drop him because you probably can and pick up somebody that's playing better and then kind of have it as a streaming spot because I think even if he starts to figure it out as the season goes on, it's not going to be like, oh gosh, I wish I had Klay Thompson on my team because he's scoring 30 a game and hitting 5 threes consistently. Like it'll probably still be inconsistent and he'll have a couple really hot shooting nights, but I think it's fine to drop him.
Mm-hmm. Especially in a 10-teamer.
Yeah.
What's the outlook for Jordan Poole with Brogdon back? Bad game last night, but that felt like it was more his shooting than having Brogdon back.
Let's see. Pulling up the numbers just to look at it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's he only got 7 shots too. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you watched that game actually. Like,
oh yes,
so
I did.
Tell me.
Yeah, I don't. I think the 7 shots. It's not something that's going to happen too often with Jordan Poole. And plus, Brogdon only played 19 minutes. Second game of a back-to-back. Playing both ends was encouraging for him, but I don't think you really want to see too much of Malcolm Brogdon on the floor at this point. You know, you want to see some of those younger guys get more minutes. And I think Jordan Poole, they're trying to evaluate whether or not he's someone they could potentially build around, you know. So 5 assists and just 1 turnover, that's encouraging for his game last night. But yeah, I don't think Brogdon's going to have too much to do with it. I just think you just have to chalk that one up to the Wizards just being outclassed by a better team, you know. So I'm not saying that because I'm a Knicks fan. I think it's just the fact of the matter. Like, one team is 2-11, the other one's 8-6. I think we all kind of knew what to expect from that game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What song are we all dancing to on the Sixers' graves?
That's so like.
You know, let's take a different path here. I'm going to ask a question of you, Noah.
Okay.
With Tyrese Maxey potentially being back as soon as tomorrow, what are we thinking about Jared McCain's fantasy value in the next few weeks, I would say?
I mean, I imagine that it takes a hit, but I don't think it's going to be this huge drop-off because Jared McCain's still going to start. Yeah. I think Nick Nurse would be fairly stupid to continue to start Kyle Lowry. Oh, and I think Maxey just bumps Kyle Lowry out of the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine he sees a few less shots. Like, he probably isn't going to continue to score 20 a game. But the only game where he had a ton of assists was the game with no Paul George or Joel Embiid. So it's not like, oh, he's not going to have the ball in his hands anymore and he's not going to get any assists. Like, a lot of what he's done has been points and threes. And he'll still get those with Tyrese Maxey, just at a lower volume. But with playing with all 3 guys out there, like, Jared McCain's going to be the 4th scoring option. So the defenses aren't going to be as keyed in on him. He might get some better looks.
Yeah, that was an absolutely stunning collapse from him last night. Like, they were up 19 early, and then the wheels just fell off. Like, it was insane to watch on the second screen. But, yeah, I think it would be one thing if Kyle Lowry was like a defensive stopper. Then you can kind of see a scenario in which he stayed in the starting lineup, but he's not. So I think Jared McCain, whether he starts or comes off the bench, I really like his fantasy value moving forward with this group.
Did you see what Shams Charania had reported on Tyrese Maxey calling out Joel Embiid? Like, I think that's so, like, great that Maxey, like, was able to do that, because it shows, like, I mean, probably on most teams, like, most players aren't going to call out or hold the superstar player accountable, but, like, that's all. I mean, like, obviously Maxey isn't an all-star on his own, like, is not quite the same tier of player, but obviously very respected. So I just thought it was cool, and I hope, like a Sixers fan, I don't like hope the Sixers do well, but like if that kind of helps turn the team around, I think that speaks volumes about Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wonder if having that new contract kind of empowers him a little bit, because it's a little easier to say something when you're up in that same pantheon pay-wise as opposed to on a rookie scale contract. Good thing for Embiid is that Philadelphia is on the road for one more game at Memphis. So little time for the fan base to kind of cool down, especially if they go out there and play well. But if they don't, Friday night at home against the Nets, that might be must-see TV. Right. Daniel asks, is Dante DiVincenzo back after hitting 5 triples on Sunday? I don't know if he's back, because I don't think his role in Minnesota is going to match what he had in New York last year. I just feel like he's getting a little more comfortable with what Minnesota needs him to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think it always, I don't know, to me, it didn't feel like, oh, Dante DiVincenzo's finally having like this breakout season last year. I felt like it was not like a fluke, but it was a lot of factors that helped him have the best season of his career. So immediately his role changing, his minutes going down, his shots going down, like, and now he's just simply not hitting as many shots. Like, overall, like, I don't know. To me, I wouldn't like, what is he back? Like, I'm not sure exactly what that means, because he's putting up pretty similar numbers to what he did the year before in Golden State, just hitting a lower percentage of shots. So no, I don't think he ever gets back to what he did last year with the Knicks. And like, that's totally fine. I hope to see more games like this last one, but even then, that's 15 points on 5 threes, 3 assists and a rebound, like sub 50% shooting. Like, That's not great.
Yeah.
That's not somebody that you have to roster. So, like, I don't know.
All right, this one should be quick. Why is Brogdon in rotation? This is so annoying. I feel your pain, Tim, but
I don't know.
last night they were without Bilal Coulibaly, so that's something to consider. I think once he's back and healthy, we're not going to see as much of Brogdon on the floor, so it's okay.
That one was weird to me, though, because like Washington has like when Kuzma was out, they were like, oh, okay, like Keyshawn George is going to start.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's what it was going to be, was that Keyshawn George was going to start, more minutes for Corey Kispert, but they started Brogdon. It was weird and unexpected. Because I know I've said multiple times, I think other people have too, that like, hey, a team is actually like tanking and kind of making it clear that they're tanking. Like, it's a good thing for these players to develop. So it was very weird that Brogdon got the start.
Yeah, I think eventually, I think if anything, you just kind of put him in that proverbial shop window. See if you can move him at the trade deadline, because obviously Washington, I wouldn't say they aren't interested in winning this year. I just think they're realistic about where they are. And this is their opportunity to evaluate these younger players. So, yeah, he may be in the rotation now. I think eventually those minutes will be trimmed. What's your thought on DeAndre Hunter's role moving forward? Is he worth picking up 12-team Roto? Thanks for the question, Lester.
I think that's kind of tough, because I think he gets you a lot of points and he's shot the ball well so far, but he really doesn't help you in many other categories. Like right now, like on Basketball Monster, he's 45th in 9 cap, but he's not rebound. Like, he doesn't rebound the ball all that well. Doesn't really do anything for your assists. Doesn't do anything defensively. So like, that's 4 categories that he doesn't impact at all. The field goal percentage has been great so far, but I would be shocked if he continues to make 50% of his shots. The free throw percentage has been solid. He doesn't turn the ball over because he doesn't pass. If he catches the ball, he basically shoots it. And yeah, he's scored the ball pretty well so far, but I don't think he's a guy that you have to roster. I think also that injuries are, suboptimal. The fact that he's consistently out of the lineup and has been basically his entire career. And I don't want to sound like I'm just discrediting what he's done, because he's been very, very good this season in his 4 games that he's played. And I think coming off the bench is very good for both him and the Hawks, because he's not, I guess, slowing down the pace of the offense when the starters are on the floor. Because it's like, if you're trying to do a pick and roll into a dump off pass, swing the ball around, like when he catches it, it's almost like he's gotten better about it. But a lot of times it was, okay, I'm going to catch it and almost like size up, hit a couple jab steps and then go take a tough mid-range shot. And he's gotten better about either just like making a quick decision and shooting it, or a quick drive, which has helped. So I think having him as a reserve is very good for both him and the Hawks, and it definitely helps his role. But I think when we're looking at it in fantasy perspective, I don't know if he helps in enough categories to really be worth a rostering in a 12-team league.
Yeah. Okay. Would you start Grant Williams, Dorian Finney-Smith, or Dario Saric in a weekly games cap today? 12-team ESPN points league. Let's pull up the schedule for today. The Nets are in Charlotte, so they're, obviously Grant Williams, Dorian Finney-Smith there, and Denver plays its second game in Memphis. I know Grant Williams had a good game over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know, man.
I want to say that I'd probably go Saric with Jokic out again. I think. Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd go Dorian Finney-Smith. I think that one I feel pretty good about not going. I'm just gonna double check to make sure it isn't like coming off some monster game, and that's why. So yeah, okay, he's been pretty good recently. I don't know. I feel most confident in Saric with Jokic out. And you said, who are they playing again?
They're playing Memphis, and then you got Brooklyn and Charlotte playing against each other. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I'd go Saric.
Yeah, you may get a low-end double-double out of Saric too in that spot. So I'm not really sure if Williams would give you that. Dorian Finney-Smith is kind of like a points, threes, and steals guy at this point. So,
but actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is a weekly lineup thing. Jokic might be back.
Yeah, that's
maybe,
the. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for tonight, then I think I would. But actually, maybe for this week, I mean, they all have 3 games. Maybe Grant Williams is the guy to go simply for the fact that he should see 3 starts, whereas Saric might just see 1.
Yeah, I think both those guys, Williams and Finney-Smith, you're looking at 3 starts for those guys. The third game for Brooklyn, that's the first game of a back-to-back at Sacramento, then they're at Golden State the following night. So then you're looking at Ben Simmons probably being out of the lineup for one of those games too. So I think I would go Dorian Finney-Smith on the weekly games cap. And you're just kind of hoping that Simmons sits out on Sunday instead of Monday. Right. How much concern should we have about Jalen Suggs? He continues to look like a completely different player with Paolo out, far beyond just the expected regression.
I mean, I don't think I'm all that concerned. I think it's just kind of understanding. I think maybe in like Dynasty, you change your evaluation a little bit. It's like, okay, like this guy was thrust into being kind of the number 2 option on offense, and it hasn't gone well at all. But the defensive numbers have still been there. The threes have been down, but he's still hitting 2 per game. I don't know. I think I assume that he'll just shoot a higher percentage at some point. This might just be a shooting slump that happens to happen at the same time as Paolo Banchero being out, which is not ideal. But I'm not too concerned. I think it's just a shooting slump. It just happens to line up with an increase in roll.
Yeah, I think I'd be more concerned about the turnovers than the shooting. 3.4 per game over the last 3 weeks. A 9-cat is a top 100 player during that stretch. You remove the turnovers, he's a top 60 player. So, I think the shooting, that will come around, especially once they get Banchero back. I'm not too worried about the shooting. I think the turnovers, cleaning that aspect of his game up while Banchero is out, would be more concerning for me.
Yeah, and I think that is just like he's having the ball in his hands more, and he, through his first couple of years in the league, they kind of established that, hey, this isn't the guy that we want to be the primary ball handler, and that's why Paolo and Franz are the primary playmakers for this team. So I think just he's not great at it, and he's an unreal defender, and he's improved a lot as a shooter, and that's why he's a starter. It's not because of his playmaking, even though he's decent as like a tertiary playmaker.
Yeah. All right, another Suggs question. Are Jalen Suggs and Jeremy Grant buy lows or sell highs? 12-team 8-cat.
I thought we definitely don't want Jeremy Grant on our team. That's what I was told preseason.
Well,
but it's coming. The shutdown's coming.
He's been better than I expected him to be. I'll put it that way. But he still dropped out of the top 100 after that hot start, and he's shooting 38.5% from the field. And I don't know if it's going to get any better for him. So
yeah,
I think it's too late to sell high, and I'm certainly not going to buy low there.
Yeah, and he's still not grabbing rebounds, which was that was your main point. Was he does not grab rebounds?
Yeah. Let's see. 3.4 rebounds per game. And he had some high rebounding nights early in the season too. Thought maybe he's turning a corner. No, it hasn't happened. So, yeah. I don't really know if you – go ahead.
I was going to say, I think if you can sell high, then sure. But, yeah, I think I agree with you that not many people are going to want to, like, buy high on Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good opportunity to buy low on Suggs because the reevaluation period for Banchero, it was 4 to 6 weeks. And I think 4 weeks is coming up in, like, a week and a half. Yeah. So he's not that far from a return. So I think if you can get Suggs now, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'd definitely go after Suggs if you're trying to decide which of those two to add to your team. All right, where do you think Dyson Daniels finishes end of season? Is he possibly a sell high, or are you keeping him wherever you can?
I think those are probably a couple different questions, but
Yeah.
I'm not trading Dyson Daniels.
Yeah.
I think if the expectation is that, if I pull up the 9-cat rankings and he's going to be, right now he's 15th on Basketball Monster. He's averaging 3.4 steals per game, and this is the top 15 player the rest of the season. Like, I think your expectations are not going to be met because I can almost guarantee that those steal numbers regress, and it might be 2.8 steals per game, and it's still an incredible season out of him. And he, finishes in the top 50 because he's improved his numbers across the board. And he's, making a really big impact on the defensive end. And so, that's not a guy that I really want to sell high on. He's a guy I want to keep around. Now, if you I don't know, if just looking at 9-cat rankings, if this is how things work and you're able to take the number 15 player, Dyson Daniels, and trade him for the number 16 player, Luka Doncic, or the number 14 player, Donovan Mitchell, and you're able to do that, I advise you to do that. But I think that's why using the 9-cat rankings to truly compare players is flawed at times. So I think, I would say just enjoy the ride, because you're probably not going to be able to get a fair trade out of him unless someone trades you a guy that they should not trade for Dyson Daniels. Yeah,
it's extremely difficult to trade a guy like that to receive proper value when you have someone who could potentially win a category for you in a week in category leagues. And that's what he can do. Even if you to drop down to say, like you said, 2.8 steals per game, it's still enough where he can help win you a category, if you're in 9-cat or 8-cat, what have you. So, enjoy this while it lasts. And I said last week I thought he could be this year's Jalen Johnson in terms of fantasy value, and I stand by that. So, I'm not trading him. All right, Dynasty ranking. Alexander Sarr, Noah Clowney, Bob Carrington, Zachary Risache, Bilal Coulibaly, Yves Misi, Jeremy Sohan, 9-cat. A lot of names there.
Ooh, I haven't done 9-cat rankings since the draft guide, and so this is going to be entirely just off the top of my head. But I would say Sarr 1, probably Bub, Coulibaly, Sohan, Risache, Misi, Clowney, but I don't feel confident in that answer. But I would say I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, I think I would have the 3 Wizards as my top 3 as well. I'd go Sarr 1 just because his position is one where they're going to need him to play 30, 34, 36 minutes per night. I think Coulibaly and Bub, you got so many young perimeter players in that rotation that maybe their minutes take a slight hit. But in terms of Dynasty, I think those 3 are the ones I would go with first. Risache, then Misi, and Sohan, and then Clowney bringing up the rear, just because you've got Nick Claxton, who's relatively young as well, in Brooklyn. So, I think Clowney would be the one I'd have on the back end of my Dynasty rankings for that group.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect in Dynasty leagues, but the situation isn't ideal, and I can't imagine that Brooklyn's looking to trade Claxton and open up minutes, or trade Clowney and he gets minutes somewhere else. So, definitely him last.
All right, Ryan's got a couple trade questions here. Derek White he's trading Derek White for Darius Garland, and then trading PJ Washington for Isaiah Hartenstein. Someone gave you Darius Garland.
That's that's someone that's trying to sell high on the small guard that shot 53% from the floor. But I'm all in on Darius Garland being back. So I'm not upset about it at all.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And obviously, he has to stay healthy, but I think what helped all those guys in Cleveland is getting the finances taken care of this summer. Like, they don't have to deal with trade rumors or any of that stuff. It feels like they're playing a lot freer than they did last season before everybody started getting hurt. So I think it's a good move. Trading PJ Washington for Isaiah Hartenstein, I think that's a good early move as well. I know PJ played really well in Oklahoma City on Sunday, but you know that when Hartenstein gets back, he's going to figure prominently in that attack. PJ went off without Luka Doncic on the court. So what he did on Sunday, I don't think that's going to be the norm for him moving forward. So I actually like both of those trades you made, Ryan.
Yeah, I think you lose a little value right now by trading PJ for Isaiah Hartenstein, but long term, like that helps you. So I guess if you're in a position where you can sacrifice some short term like wins or production for long term value, like good move.
He also asks, is Mike Conley trending back up?
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't.
Let's see.
I know he's played well recently, but
yeah, no, he has, and the minutes have gone a little bit back up. So I think sure, maybe he's trending back up because he's played well. I'm not expecting him to, I don't know, give me a ton of production consistently. I think the minutes will still like be iffy from time to time. I mean, trending up in the sense that he was very like his value was incredibly low at the beginning of the season. Like, sure, I would agree with that, but I don't think I'm like super convinced that he's a guy I need to trade for right now.
Yeah, I would say no, just because 6th round value over the last week, but he's averaging 3 steals per game. That doesn't feel like it's sustainable for him. So, and he's also shooting about 37% from the field, 50% for the foul line during that stretch. Like free throw shooting will improve, but I have questions about the field goal percentage and the steals. So I can't sit here and say that he's trending back up. I think he's just kind of rising to where we expect him to be in terms of fantasy value. So you're thinking just outside top 100 as he is in terms of season-long value right now. Would you drop Donovan Clingan for Zach Collins 9-cat head-to-head? No, I wouldn't.
I think just the fact that Wemby's out tonight, like if you feel like you need to have Zach Collins playing tonight, then sure. But I think it's, I mean, it's interesting because like I think DeAndre Ayton's doubtful or not expected to play on Wednesday, or maybe I'm mixing that up with a different game. But Clingan will continue to start and get you a ton of blocks. And they play on Wednesday, so I don't know if I would sacrifice getting Clingan as a starter on Wednesday. Just and with the back-to-back coming up, Rob Williams is going to miss a game, so it's another big game of minutes for Clingan there as well. So I don't feel good about it, but I guess if you're in a position where maybe you can drop him to get Zach Collins for tonight and then drop Zach Collins and get Clingan right back, then maybe that's a good strategy.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
It's risky.
I think, it is definitely a risk because you got that back-to-back coming up. Ayton is actually questionable for Wednesday, so there's a chance he plays. Okay. But yeah, I would hold on to Clingan. I think he's going to be really good for you, especially the second half of the season. And you put him out there on the waiver wire now, you might not get him back. So I would definitely not make that move personally. All right. 9-cat head-to-head league. Who would you drop to activate Trey Murphy? Colin Sexton or Keontae George?
Either one of them. I mean, I don't feel. Yeah. I guess it's category dependent. Do you want Keontae George's assists, or do you want Colin Sexton's not abysmal field goal percentage? I guess that's a way to look at it because I don't feel like either player is like a must roster.
Yeah, I think I'd be more likely to drop Keontae if anything, but
okay.
Yeah, if the answer were both, I wouldn't have an issue with that. So yeah. All right. Would you try to trade for Emmanuel quickly, or is it all too risky thinking of March and April? Thinking of offering Mikal Bridges or somebody.
I feel like it's so like risky to trade for quickly right now because I think the initial diagnosis has him back any day now with this elbow injury. But I mean, I guess their next game is on Thursday, so we'll see what the injury report looks like. But he just hasn't been healthy this year.
Yeah.
The numbers have been kind of meh when he's played, and I think that can be attributed to early exits with injuries. But I'm not like I don't feel good about trading, especially of like a player of similar value for Emmanuel quickly. I think if you can do like a buy low situation where you're like, hey, I'll take the guy that's probably not going to play after March 1st, that's been injured all season. Like I'll take him off your hands. then maybe that is a way that I don't think I would trade Mikal Bridges, and he has been okay this year, but I think it's simply the fact that he's going to play basketball games and quickly just hasn't been able to do that this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely not offering Mikal Bridges for Emmanuel Quickley. I know Mikal struggled with his shot some from 3, but yeah, I think like Noah said, you have to be looking for a buy low opportunity here. Because Bridges, I'm thinking if they both play their potential in fantasy, they'd have similar value. And I don't think you should do that in a situation like this because of the questions that you mentioned here. All right. With the Hawks getting healthy, are we back to the classic Hawks rotation where everyone kneecaps each other's value except for Trey and hopefully Dyson Daniels?
I think you can rely on Trey, Dyson Daniels, and Jalen Johnson for really good value the rest of the season. Dyson Daniels may lose a couple minutes with Bogdanovic back, but I don't imagine that he's going to lose many simply because he's been so good that they can't take him off the floor. It's not like, oh, he was just benefiting from Bogey being out. It's this guy is so good. Like, he's so important to the team. He has to be on the floor. So we could see, I mean, Reese Shea will probably continue to start, but they'll mix in DeAndre Hunter and Bogey off the bench. I mean, the Clint Capella and Yeka Okongwu minute split with some Larry Nance sprinkled in as well. Like, that's been there. So I think that there's 3 guys that are going to give you consistent, strong value for the rest of the season. And that's Trey, Dyson, Jalen Johnson. And then there's a few other guys that may provide some inconsistent value from time to time. And that's Bogey, DeAndre Hunter, Okongwu, Capella, and occasionally like Reese Shea will be inconsistent, but yeah, I think that's just the way it's going to be as long as everyone stays healthy. And that's not a guarantee because Jalen Johnson missed their last game when it seemed like everyone was back.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't really have anything of value to add to what he said there. So let's just move on. What is the probability Alex Caruso finishes within the top 109 cap formats?
Low. It's next to no probability. I mean, not next to no, probably doesn't make sense, but low the probability is low.
Yeah, he would need multiple injuries amongst a few of those other guys within the perimeter rotation to make it happen. He's at 181 right now, according to Basketball Monster. So I think I'll give him a 20% chance of making it happen. Just give you an exact number to work with here. Right. Is Zubac a hypothetical sell high given the threat of Kawhi's potential return sapping his usage? I don't think so. I think you have to hold on to him. We don't know when or if Kawhi is going to play this season. I know they've been really vague about it. It's like he'll play this season. All right. Thank you. That doesn't really clear much up for anybody. So yeah, I think Zubac is someone I would hold on to if I have him rostered personally.
Yeah, I think if you look at Zubac as a sell high, just for the fact that he's played very well so far and you're not convinced that he's going to continue to play that well, that's fine. But I think if it's the looming threat of Kawhi Leonard returning that's impacting that for you, then I don't think should be the case at all. He has seen more shots this year, but I think it's his minutes aren't going to go down. Like, he's played 34 minutes a game this year. That's not going down just because Kawhi's back. So that's still going to be there. Maybe he sees a shot or two that go away, but we also have no idea when Kawhi's back. I think the quote from Tyronn Lue last night was that he's not going to be back this week and he's done some light shooting or something like that. So like, yeah, he's still, I guess the plan is for him to play this season. And if he's doing some light shooting in November, that could mean next month. That could be in March. We have zero clue. So I wouldn't be panicking to get rid of Zubac just because Kawhi may or may not return soon.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, even last night, even though he only scored 8 points, he had 17 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block shot. I don't think you don't move on from a player like that, given the minutes and what he's provided offensively on most nights. Can you guys see D'Angelo Russell turning things around in the near future?
I mean, I think he has been a little bit better, but I don't know if turning it around is the the right way of putting it. I don't know if you saw this tweet, Raph. It was a quote about the Lakers may not want to trade D'Angelo Russell now that he's become impactful in his new role. And then Kirk Henderson on Twitter said, "Wow, I really love these vegetables. I say out loud as I eat them in front of my children. I sure hope no one else wants any, so I can eat them all." So it's almost like I don't know if we want to trade D'Angelo Russell now. He's been very impactful for us, and he's really bought into his role, almost like trying to tell teams like, I guess, this is a guy that you guys will really want, but we're not giving him away anymore. So I don't think anything has changed with D'Angelo Russell. I think he's still going to be a trade target in February, and I think that they're going to keep him in this role, which has been a little bit better for him, but still not great for his fantasy value.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add there. Like this, it's obvious they want to move on from him. Come on, like I don't really know what else to say about. Like, it's obvious they want to move on, and it's obvious that he doesn't really want to do too much if it doesn't involve starting. So, yeah, it's about done. We're going to run through these pretty quickly here since we're wrapping up. Fred VanVleet and Maxey 9-cat assist to turnovers instead of turnovers for a category. Give me Maxey.
Maxey.
As soon to be 5-position eligible, Jalen Williams entered the top 4 draft discussion going forward, alongside Jokic, Wemby, and AD.
No,
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah,
he's probably, top 3 on his team, which that's exaggerated by having SGA and Chet on his team, but. No, I think SGA is his teammates in the top 4 before he is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. The positional versatility is certainly great, but I don't think it's enough to push him that high up the rankings. Would you trade Time Lord for Clingan in a keeper league? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd rather have Clingan.
Mm-hmm. Chris Dunn or Alex Caruso?
I think Chris Dunn just because he's starting. An open roster spot there. That's my answer.
That's what I was gonna say. I was trying to think of a nice way to say it. Like, can we just free up that spot and use it for a streamer? I think that's what I would do personally.
Salary flexibility.
Exactly. Is it worth it to hold on to Trey Mann as insurance for LaMelo Ball? 16-team 9-cat. Oh, I guess. But I don't know if he's a must hold either, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't drop him just to drop him, but if there's somebody else that you like, I would probably just do it.
Mm-hmm. Hi, guys. I'm playing 9-cat head-to-head league, and I'm doing pretty decent so far. Good stuff, Manos. I have an offer to trade Dyson Daniels for Chet Holmgren. He has Daniels. Would you do it? I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I think that you're just sacrificing months of value. Just for the chance of having Chet. So I would say if Chet was coming back in 3 weeks, then maybe I'd consider it. But it's going to be closer to 2+ months. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think I'd do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either for that very reason. Sell high on Jakob Poeltl or sell low on Ayton?
I would try and sell high on Jakob Poeltl, which is exactly what Toronto is going to be trying to do as well. Selling low on Ayton, just for a philosophy's sake, I'm going to say no. I would wait for him to come back, play, and have a good game, and then try and sell him.
All right. What is a realistic trade for Jokic? 2 first-rounders. I'm assuming this is a keeper league. I would need more than 2.
So I'm trying to trade for Jokic in my home dynasty league, and I'm trying to give this guy 4 firsts and 4 younger prospects, not great assets there, but I would say it's probably more than that, but it depends on league size. It depends on how your league values picks. Like a lot of that is impacted there.
Yeah. Also, like, who are you making this deal with? What's their team looking like? I don't really know how it works in terms of draft picks, but if you were to get maybe 2 high first rounders,
true.
Then maybe you think about it. But yeah, I don't know, man. Jokic is someone I'd rather hold on to in fantasy leagues. Is Jared McCain legit, and for how long? He's absolutely legit, and I think he's going to be legit for years to come, to be honest with you.
Forever. Yes, and forever.
A little clarification on the Dunn and Caruso question. It was drop either one of those to add Time Lord. Daniel, I appreciate you reaching out with that clarification because you had a stump for a minute. I would drop either one of them for Robert Williams, depending on your center position. As long as you have other options to cover for when he sits, I would drop either one of those guys.
Agreed.
Okay, this is definitely the last one. Finney Smith, Grant Williams, Jonathan Isaac. Rank these streamers, please. Well, Roger, I'm going to go with Finney Smith 1, Isaac 2, and Grant Williams 3.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess Isaac has been a little bit better recently. Okay, but there is a back-to-back coming up. Has he played back-to-backs this year? He has played back-to-backs this year.
Yeah.
Wow, good for him. It's been probably 5 or 6 years since he's played a back-to-back. So, for some reason, I just really want to go Grant Williams, Jonathan Isaac, Dorian Finney-Smith. So that's two perspectives that don't line up. You don't get that often when we do these Q&As. So.
All right, so I'm not going to lie and add another question here. I will say that I would take Shaedon Sharpe over Jared McCain for the rest of the season. I think Shaedon's going to have a larger role in Portland than McCain will have once all the 76ers are healthy. So there you go.
Oh, that's a tough one, but I think I'd agree. And I don't know. I hope it's not just like recency bias of Shaedon Sharpe playing really well. But
I love Jared McCain, but I feel like Sharpe, with the lack of two guards in Portland, is going to be really big for them. And I think he's shut down a verse just because he's so young. They need to see more from him too. So,
yep, agreed.
All right. So, well, we've gone over an hour. So I want to thank you all for your questions. Thank you again, Noah, for coming on and answering some questions. And we will be back next Tuesday, but we do have the Rotoworld basketball show on Wednesday with ourselves and Dan Titus, Yahoo Sports. Same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Hope you guys can join us. Take care.
See ya.